सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। The attrition is possible. Attrition of any body of knowledge is possible, and in fact, unavoidable. When that body of knowledge happens to be the knowledge of the finite objects that are other than you, that stand apart from the self-shining, self-evident subject. So the knowledge of any object, like I said yesterday, is begging for mistakes and incompletion. What is this? Flower. Why it is like this? Don't know. So the more you know, the more you know that you don't know. You're painfully aware of how little you know. And so in every body of knowledge, there are two things that are here to stay. One is this sense of incompleteness, that I can never know an object completely and fully. And the second thing is that in giving this knowledge to someone else, there is the transferring rather, of all the mistakes that I might have inherited, including the mistakes centered on the upakarana or the karana of this knowledge, the instrument of this knowledge, which is what? The mind. Memory is a big thing. Yeah. So many times, one forgets. And then, you forgot that you forgot also. If you forgot that you forgot, then there is no chance of saying, I'll make up for it next time. Here not only one forgets, but one forgets that one has forgotten. And so definitely there is that attrition. And also there is possibility of distortion, like that telephone game we used to play as children. Molehill is the word. After 20 people, what does it become? Mountain. So this is how it is. You don't hear it properly means that Shravanam is not proper because it's whispered. And then you add your own little masala, chaat masala to it, and you make another kind of chaat. And then there is distortion. But that is not possible in Brahma Vidya. If you have studied it and if you are calling it Brahma Vidya, and if it is not some kind of a spin-off on it, or a new age, what is that? Touch. Brahma Vidya with a new age touch. All this, you have not added anything to it, you cannot. But if that is what you are passing on is Brahma Vidya, these two kinds of faults or fallacies cannot happen. Why? Because what you are teaching is not other than you. And that you, thankfully, is self-evident, and thankfully you have nothing to do with making it self-evident. The I is self-evident, and it's not because of you that it's self-evident. The I is not obliging you by becoming self-evident. The I is self-evident. Already. It is shining as I. And in fact, you're not passing on a body of knowledge, even centered on the I. You're removing the ignorance. Just in the same manner that your ignorance was removed, you are removing the ignorance for someone else because you are asked to do so. Very different thing and extremely humbling. Because you're not putting you're not drilling the brain and putting new knowledge inside. You're just removing the ignorance. And how do you know how to do that? Because your own ignorance was removed by your teacher. And your teacher's ignorance was removed by the other teacher. And that other teacher's ignorance was removed by his or her teacher. So we are experts in ignorance and doubt removal. So we are not really in charge of drilling some knowledge. That's not what it is. And therefore, when someone comes and says teach, in the some of the ancient texts we see, they don't say, when they say adhihi bhagavo brahma, oh sir, revered sir, please teach me about Brahman. And Adi Shankara in all these Upanishads, his bhashya will say, he will translate adhihi. Adhihi technically means teach. But he translates it as what? Madartham smara. Remember for my sake. You don't need to remember right now. Remember what? Not, oh, Satyam Jnanam Anantam, Satyam Jnanam Anantam, Satyam Jnanam Anantam, Brahma Vidapnoti Param. That's not what the student is asking you to remember. Remember how it was for you when your ignorance was removed, and follow that same methodology for me and take me out of samsara. This is a sane knowledge. And that's why a number of these, new age teachers and new age paramparas don't like this. Because they have to admit that they needed a teacher. Which seems to be something to be, we are all so proud that we have a teacher, that we have been well taught. In fact, I always say, people ask when I go to these conferences, oh, what is your qualification? I say, I have only one qualification. I was taught by the best of the teachers. Best among all the teachers. That is my only qualification. That's what I say because I'm so proud of it. But there are people who are very unhappy that the teacher is needed. And this Upanishad is going to critique that. This critique has already begun. They are unhappy because they feel like something, that ego-based feeling that I am less because I need someone else to help me. That's why there are all these stories around certain teachers. The first word he said was Atma, not Amma, Atma. Amma means mother. Usually the child will say Amma, mother. But what did this child say? Atma. What was the second word? Brahman. Third word is. And, was born, enlightened, got the knowledge, apne aap, sat under a tree and became enlightened. These are the stories that proliferate. Then what? And then if they became enlightened by themselves, they should say, okay, let the world become enlightened on its own. Isn't it? Bhagavan gave me this knowledge. I got it directly from Bhagavan by sitting under a tree or sitting, whatever, under the rain, doesn't matter. Or standing under the shower, same thing. Some brain cells got stimulated and I somehow suddenly stumbled upon this knowledge. Then they should keep quiet and they should enjoy what they have, and then they should just let the other people also gain the knowledge in the same way, because now we found by their own experience they should understand that if that is how the knowledge is gained, then everybody should let them have that privilege. No. Then the rules change suddenly. Then everyone has to depend on them to gain the knowledge. This is not fair, This is not fair. Then the rules change because they become sampradaya krit. Sampradaya krit means the starters of sampradaya, upstarts of sampradaya, the starter uppers of sampradaya. They become sampradaya krit. Fine, we don't have any problem with anyone becoming a sampradaya krit. But before you become a sampradaya krit, what should you be? You should be a sampradaya vit. You should know the sampradaya. And somewhere along the line, Adi Shankara is going to say, asampradaya vit, murkhavat, upekshaniyaha. Upekshaniyaha means that aniya, that niya, that suffix has the force of you cannot but do this, you have to do this, has the force of a order. Tavya aniyaraha, this aniya, Upekshaniyaha means avoid like the plague. Yeah. If somebody is suffering from a plague, you are not going to give them a hug, yeah. You are not even going to go anywhere near them. So, someone who doesn't know the importance of and the meaning of this lineage and the force of this lineage and what it does and why it is so important and why it is the mainstay of the teaching, and someone who is avoiding the sampradaya, who wants to be a standalone, some kind of a fancy figure in the gurus, and who wants to start a lineage, consider the person an upstart. It's fine if you want to start your own lineage, go ahead. But you don't have to disregard the lineage that was given to you. Yeah, because everything is given, this knowledge is given, it has come through this chain. And so, the sampradaya becomes very important. And so I was talking about the two things here. So therefore, since that ignorance, the methodology of ignorance removal has been taught to you and has succeeded in removing your own ignorance, that methodology, because of the parampara, has a mainstay in terms of becoming extremely credible. Has a credibility that cannot, becomes infallible. Because everyone from time immemorial has been, from Bhagavan himself, has been gaining the knowledge. And all knowledge comes from Bhagavan. This knowledge has also come from Bhagavan, no problem. Everybody has been gaining the knowledge. And then what? And has been passing it on to others. And so therefore I am safe to approach this sampradaya because the knowledge is time tested. And the sampradaya is still alive and there is no attrition. Why? Because you are here. That's why there is no attrition. It's not that it skipped a generation, because if it skipped a generation, then it should have skipped. Yeah, it didn't skip. There is no skipping here. There is only skipping out of samsara. That's the only skipping possible. That's why there is no distortion, no attrition. And the other reason why there is no attrition is that, thankfully, the I happens to be infinite and self-effulgent. It is evident to myself. Everything else is evident to me. I is evident to me. So therefore, no distortion is possible. No attrition is possible. And one more thing, big secret. It is not dependent on memory. So you cannot say, I forgot. You can forget the words of the Upanishad. Yesterday I said they are a heap of Shabda Rashi. They are a heap of words. Okay. You can forget, what comes after Brahma, Devanam, what. You can forget that. But you can never forget, what you never had to remember. How can you forget that which you never had to remember? And what is that? I is not a product of memory. Memory is because I am. I is dependent on nothing. Memory is dependent on I. I is consciousness. Memory is a mithya byproduct of consciousness. So therefore, I am whole. You don't have to sit and, learn by rote. I am whole, I am whole, I am whole, I am whole. Oh, I forgot. What am I? Whole. You don't have to try to remember, because it is something that you already are. And that isness is not something subject to memory. And so therefore what? Therefore this is something so important to know. It is something which is extremely crucial to going to the third verse from the second verse. Because otherwise what will happen? We will make the mistake of putting a stay order here and saying that we cannot study further because there may be distortions, forgetting, lapses, vagueness, error, everything may have been transmitted. No. That's why you can say the knowledge is Purana. Pura eva nava cha. That which was ancient and that which is ever new. Because Atma is now. Now it is being communicated now, and that now has the force of an entire lineage, where that communication of the now worked to remove the ignorance. So therefore it is time tested, and that is why this is parampara stuti and the praise of the parampara. And now we will see bhashya paravaram. One more thing I will say here: Bharadvajaha angirase paravaram. Actually there is no compound called paravara, it's not exactly an allowed compound. We can do two things. We can say chandasam. Chandasam means what? Yeah, it is belonging to some Vedic meter, which I don't have anything. Chandasam means it's belonging to the revealed knowledge, which I'm not going to touch, and I'm just going to let it be. That we of course have to do. Then the second thing is, if the Chandas has used it, if Veda has used it, we have to explain it. And para means that which is superior, one, the meaning. And avara means that which is inferior. So the knowledge is called paravara, the parampara is called paravara. And that's why we cannot use this meaning, the literal meaning superior, inferior, because you cannot say from the superior acharya mukhat, parasmat acharya mukhat, avaraya shishyaya proktah, it was given to the lowly inferior student. Because then what are you doing? You are just axing the parampara right there, because how did the lowly inferior student then become a superior acharya? Then there is a big gap in the understanding. So we have to change the meaning of the word superior, inferior to para means pura, that which came before. Superior, inferior in the order of appearance. So first who comes? Shishya or Guru? Guru comes. And then the Guru gives the knowledge to who? The one who comes later, which is Shishya. So avaraya shishyaya, to the Shishya that came later, the Guru that came before, para, Guru, gave the knowledge. So that way we take one meaning. Second meaning we say is that para means the knowledge of the absolute. Avara means here superior, inferior we can kind of take. Para means the ultimate knowledge of Brahman. Avara means all other bodies of knowledge. Knowledge of Jagat, knowledge of nonsensical things in the Jagat. Knowledge of all kinds of, small things. All this. So this parampara deals with what? Satyam, which is the knowledge of the self. And Satyam cannot be delineated without debunking what? What is that? Satyam goes with what? Huh? Mithya. So without debunking, you don't debunk Jnanam. So I said, what is it that is debunked? Huh? Mithya. Mithya is debunked. So Mithya, the debunking of Mithya is a part of the unfolding of the teaching. Correct? Yeah. So when the debunk Mithya, the Satyam, which is already pre-existent, it comes to light as I. So therefore Mithya is referred to by the word avara. Of course that which is totally inferior, not even worth knowing, but it is included in para, the ultimate knowledge. Very beautiful. Yeah. So this is Adi Shankara. So let us read. Yametam अथर्वणे प्रवदेत अवदत् ब्रह्मविद्यां ब्रह्मा ताम् एव ब्रह्मणः प्राप्ताम् अथर्वापुरा पूर्वम् उवाच उक्तवान् अंगिर्नाम्ने ब्रह्मविद्याम्. Yam is described as etam, means that which is under discussion right now, right here, not some vague knowledge, that which is under discussion here. And then what? Atharvane pravadet has to be read as prakarshena avadat. Taught. What did he teach? Brahma Vidyam, of course. He's not going to talk about how to make chapatis. He's not going to teach that. He's going to teach Brahma Vidya because that is what he learned. And then, Yam Atharvane Pravadeta, that which was taught unto Atharva. Who taught? Brahma. That Brahma comes later. And Adi Shankara does not say anything about it because that was already explained. And then Tam Eva, by Evakara, he says he did not teach him how to play some game. In fact, he taught him how to not play any more games. So he said, he gave him that Eva. Evakara is for emphasis, that very knowledge, exactly how he received it, along with the jokes, etc. That is my addition. I do make stuff up. Anyway, so so that same very knowledge, in his own way, he taught, and that same knowledge without any attrition. And we know why there is no attrition, because it is oneself, it is not based on memory, etc. And it is not other than oneself. All this we have seen. It's not subject to distortion because it is not based on memory. And even though we call it Brahma Vidya, actually it's the Vidya of how to sweep away the cobwebs of ignorance, made by the spiders of Raga Dvesha. That is what it is. That is the Vidya. So that how to sweep away, that sweeping lesson, one has been swept away by the grace of the Guru, and one is able to transfer that grace, in a sweeping manner to the ones that come, after. That's all it is. And so here, this is what is talked about, and that's why there is no attrition. And to emphasize that, he says, Eva, Tam Eva. And what is that Tam? Brahmanav Praptam. Gained by Brahmaji, this infallible knowledge of the self, gained by Brahmaji, who Atharva, what did he do? Pura means a long time ago, Purvam it should be translated as, Uvacha means Uktavan, gave completely. To whom? Angire. And what is this Angire? Angir Namne, the one who was called by the name of Angir. And what did he teach? Tameva Brahma Vidyam. That Brahma Vidyam alone he taught. He didn't teach Astra Vidya, Nakshatra Vidya, Shastra Vidya, Dhanur Vidya, Ayurveda. He didn't teach any of those Upavedas. He taught Brahma Vidya alone. And the Brahma Vidya is a package deal. It comes along with the teacher for free, and then it also comes along with what? How to remove ignorance. That really is what is Brahma Vidya. And then Sacha, and which is this and he says, don't think this belongs to Brahma or Bharadvaja, or the other one, Atharva. It belongs to who? It belongs to Angir. Angir has two names. One is Angir, the other one is Angihi. Yeah, Angihi. And Adi Shankara alerts us to the fact that there is another name for this Angir, because elsewhere, perhaps in the Upanishads or in the first portion of the Veda, he may have channeled some mantras, and then he is propitiated elsewhere as Angihi. So he says that such a Angihi. And who is this Angihi? This Angihi is none other than Angir of the previous line. Okay? So such a Angihi, also aka Angir, what did he do? Bharadvajaya, Bharadvaja Gotra Utpannaya, means the one who was born in the Bharadvaja Gotra, Satyavahaya, and then that is explained as Satyavaha Namne, unto one which bears the name of Satyavaha, Praha Proktavan. Taught completely, just as it was received. And then what? Bharadvajaha in turn Angirase, and then it is vague, because who is this Angiras? Is it a Shishya or a Putra? Or is it Putra Shishya or Shishya Putra? We don't know. So therefore, Adi Shankara says, and I already addressed this in the beginning, that the reason the vagueness is there is not incidental, it is not accidental, it is important because we are getting away from this whole genealogy type thinking and focusing on the parampara. So we are becoming, we are becoming sampradayavits by this, and then so we say that, so Adi Shankara gives a nod to the Upanishads maneuverings here and say, Swashishyaya Putraya Va. Va means wherever there is or, we say Athava, short form of Athava, Va. Va. Va means we don't know whether it was Swashishya, his own Shishya, or his own son, and in fact it doesn't matter. So what did he teach? Paravaram. There is a new adjective here. And what is that Paravaram? Parasmad Acharya Mukhat. We have to add Avarena Shishyena Prapta iti Paravara. First meaning. Two meanings are there. First is Parasmat. Like Parasmai Pada. Parasmat, fifth case of Para. Fifth case of Para is Parasmat. Means from the Acharya Mukhat, which is Parasmat. Parasmat means coming before. And then what? Avarena Shishyena, by the Shishya who is coming later. Prapta, that which was gained, is called Paravara, compound. A strange compound, but a compound nonetheless. And then, this is one meaning. Understood this meaning? It's a simple order. Guru comes first, Guru teaches the student, Guru is called Para, and the student is called Avara because he comes later, he or she, and then the knowledge that is gained from the Guru Shishya Parampara is called Paravara. Got it? Okay. Then moving on, the second meaning is described. And what is the second meaning? Paravara Sarva Vidya Vishaya Vyapte Heva Tam Paravaram Angirase Praha iti Anushangaha. So second meaning he gives, Paravara means Sarva Vidya Vishaya Vyaptehe. So Vyaptehe, because of the fact that this knowledge encompasses both the knowledge of Satyam and Mithya. Brahma Vidya, yes or no?
Yes.
Very good. Why?
Because
one falsifies the other, because all there is Satyam. So why should it talk about Mithya if all there is Satyam? Huh? Why should it talk about Mithya?
Because there is a mistake.
Huh? Because there is a mistake, and also if there is no Mithya and all there is Satyam, and that Satya Buddhi I have to gain, correct? And so when I gain that Satya Buddhi, like I said, it is that Neti Neti teaching method. What is that Neti Neti? Na iti. Because the Mithya always becomes a place of a locus of error. I take it to be Satyam, and so therefore I have to constantly be taught how to debunk Mithya. So it's a twofold process, recognizing Satyam as I, not just recognizing Satyam as one more thing to be known. No. Brahma Vidya is not one more thing to be known among the many things. That's why there is no incompleteness. It's the only thing to be known. Tam eva. That alone is to be known. Because knowing other bodies of knowledge, your sense of wantingness, incompleteness and fear and insecurity is not gone. The wants keep coming. Sometimes, 2, 2, 3, 3, 5, 5, 10, 10 at a time. How are you going to manage them? That's why if you stand in front of Bhagavan, you go to the shrine, you don't know what to pray for. All the prayers come cascading, like the Niagara Falls. Recently, somebody said Niagara Falls is frozen, and everybody went to look. wasn't frozen, not possible. Like that, the wants also, the force of the cascading wants can never be frozen. Yeah. No matter how desperate one is still wanting. And so this wanting person is not removed by having one more body of knowledge under one's wing. That's not going to make any difference to your wanting. Because in learning a body of knowledge, you have satiated one want, but then a few others have come up. And so therefore what? It still is each body of knowledge is just a treatise, is an unending treatise of your incompleteness. That's all it is. Because everything is mithya, 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 mithya. Satyam alone deals with resolving that wanting person into the understanding that you are that which is not wanting at all. Which is not wanting at all. So the wanter is knocked off from its association with the I. The I is shown to be a non-wanting I. So this wanting I and the non-wanting I cannot coexist. Tamah prakashavat, like light and darkness cannot coexist in the same place. One has to go. Which has to go? The darkness. And the darkness has to go. You cannot say, oh, let's decide whether light should go or darkness should go. It's a no-brainer. So the wanting I has to go. Why? Because I have problems with the wanting I don't want to be the wanting I. That's why it has to go. Because the natural affinity is to be non-wanting. That's why nobody wants to take help. That's why one wants to be self-sufficient. All this is really because one doesn't know the self. One thinks self-sufficient means not asking anyone for anything. That's a mistake. Because the self is thought of as good as this body-mind-sense complex. But that sense of wanting to be independent of everything is really based on the fact that the I is not dependent on anything. It's a non-wanting I which needs to be discovered through the thicket of these wants. Yeah, this is the problem. And so therefore, the knowledge, the teaching is a twofold method. It's called Adhyaropa Apavadabhyam Nishprapancham Prapanchate. Adhyaropa means first you see the imposition that the want is making on top of all these objects in the Jagat which are by themselves benign. The objects don't have a problem. The subject is subject to various problems. The objects just exist. They exist either for what? My enjoyment or my guilt or whatever it is, but that guilt or the enjoyment has to do with me. It doesn't have to do with the object. This I have to understand. So really speaking, the objects are just there. They are all manifestations of this Satyam alone. But then over which I have done Adhyaropa. Just like the aropa of the snake is done on rope. On ropa. So that's why it's called rope. Because it is subject to aropa. See? So that is one more way of saying English came from Sanskrit. So this aropa, just like if I am fear driven and I go out of the house and there is something conveniently with 3 bends and it happens to be my own hose pipe lying on the lawn, but then I am fear driven, that fear itself conjures up a snake where it is not. Where is the snake? Here. But I am projecting it over there. This is called Adhyaropa. And this Adhyaropa doesn't extend just to the innocent hose pipe. Yeah, it extends to the world of names, forms, beings, places. Everyone is affected by my Adhyaropa. Most of all, I am affected by my Adhyaropa, forget everyone else. Because my Raga Dveshas dictate how I relate to them or not. I mean, all I have to see is a stranger approaching. Correct? Immediately the mind goes into overdrive. What do they want? First, how are they dressed? Oh, they look homeless. Immediately I have made up the thing. If the person just had not taken a shower, that's all. Had just come out of his house to take the newspaper. But I have already made an assumption. Oh, hair is unkempt and looks funny, hasn't brushed teeth, and, must be homeless. And then I have fear connected to this. What will they do? Homeless is equal to, this is all my own assumptions, a string of assumptions. Homeless perhaps means what? Drugs. Drug means addict. Addict means violent. All this I have created a whole biography for this person who is just innocently coming out of this house, lazy. That's all we can say. Yeah. So instead of seeing things for as they are, I am in fear. I am sitting in a pot of brewing fear. Yeah, like coffee, the more it sits and brews and decocts, the stronger it gets. Yeah, the grounds have to be really fine, these Turkish grounds, very fine. Yeah, and then what happens? And it becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. So the more you sit here, grounded in your own fear, then the whole Jagat looks frightening. Everything. And this is about a stranger, so much adhyaropa. New neighbor that moved in perhaps, lazy neighbor, that's all. And then you can also have adhyaropa about the significant other. Yeah, and that's frequently that happens. You don't love me. Did you miss me? And the significant other, if the other wants to remain significant, cannot say, but you were only gone for 10 minutes. How can I miss you? That is not the correct thing to say. Otherwise you will become other. You will not become significant anymore. That significant will be crossed off. So you have to play into the game. Yes, I missed you. Then this becomes a loaded question. How much? When? And then why did you not text if you missed me? All these questions will come. And so therefore, this adhyaropa extends to the entire Jagat. And so the entire Jagat is vitiated by my own wants and don't wants. This monochrome, or actually it's a dual chrome. Dual chrome. One is raga chrome, another is dvesha chrome. Two colors. This jiva stupid, jiva knows. And paints the whole Jagat with these two colors. The same two colors are different, slightly shades. Who is shady? The jiva is shady. The Jagat is not shady. Yes. If I paint the whole Jagat with my own colors of raga and dvesha, that is what I will see. That is what I will greet. So Brahma Vidya is first, is a paint remover first. Yes. What is it called? What is the paint remover called? Stripper. Yes, it has to strip. And sometimes the Upanishad has to use sandpaper because so many coats of paint, it doesn't go. And the sandpaper also comes in very gradation, from fine, soft to really harsh. Sometimes that harsh sandpaper has to be used. Yeah. Ihaiva na avedit. Ihaiva ched avedit atha satyam asti. This is the very, gross, very coarse sandpaper. Nachediha avedit mahati vinashtihi. Sandpaper. This is removing the paint from the eyes of the student. And what is that sandpaper? If you know right now, right here, then you are okay. Then you have this satyam. If you don't know in this lifetime itself, if you don't know the infinite as yourself in this lifetime, you have infinite loss, because the loss of the infinite is infinite loss. You are destroyed. Oh, I am destroyed. Yes, you are destroyed. You see, oh, okay, then I'll attend the next class. So the Upanishad has to use drastic methods of rubbing, scrubbing, first removing the paint. There is no new paint that the Upanishad does not paint in some pretty colors and draw some flowers and then fill in the colors. The Upanishad doesn't need to do that. Because stripped of this raga dvesha paint, the world is wonderful. It's benign because everything is satyam alone. So this adhyaropa of this paint has to be removed by apavada, negation. And sometimes it mimics this, it simulates this by putting the adhyaropa on something and then removing it so that you don't have to, you are aware that it is being done. This is a fantastic method of teaching. And this method of teaching alone here is called paravara because it includes the para through the negation of the avara. And here you can say avara is indeed inferior because this mithya is inferior. Mithya derives itself, doesn't have a leg to stand on, derives itself from Satyam, resolves into Satyam. Is just an as though separation from Satyam. And so therefore, this paravara is the name of the primer Vidya, prime time Vidya that removes ignorance. So the second meaning Adi Shankara gives, very beautiful, fantastic. Have we done that? Yeah. Avarena prapta, yeah. So, parapara sarva vidya vishaya vyaptehe. Vyaptehe means because it pervades. This Brahma vidya pervades everything. You cannot say the vidya of Satyam does not include mithya. It includes mithya also. So, therefore, paravara. Iti angirase praha. That praha you have to, Adi Shankara says you have to do anuvritti, anushangaha, you have to bring it down. You have to use that same praha from earlier to bring it down for the sentence, vakya paripurnarthaya, for the completion of the sentence. Shaunako havai mahashalah angirasam vidhivad upasannah papracha kasminnu bhagavo vijñāte sarvamidam vijñātam bhavati iti. Yeah, so this second mantra concludes the stuti of the parampara, and then the third mantra is talking about the need for the teacher to gain this knowledge and how to approach the teacher. It is giving a little, what is that? A little tutorial. Yeah, an experiential tutorial. Here I can use the word experiential tutorial. So now we take a little sideline and say Shaunakaha, one more person. Who is Shaunaka now? We don't even know. He was never introduced before. Suddenly, where is the connection? Suddenly the third mantra starts with Shaunakaha. Who is this fellow? Then that doesn't help. Who is this fellow? Indeed, Mahashalah. That also we'll see what it is, don't worry. Still that doesn't tell me who this fellow is who has dropped out of the sky. Shaunako Havai Mahashalah. Indeed Mahashalah. And then what? Then we are okay. Angirasam. That Angiras. Okay. Angirasam. Angirasam means object. Okay, don't think of rasam. Yeah, this is not rasam. This is Angirasam, second case. So Angiras, second case, Angirasam, Upasannaha. Upa, same Upa as Upanishad. What does Upa mean? Near, very good. Upa, near, Samipe. Sannaha, approaching, having approached. So now we know that Shaunaka is a prospective Shishya wannabe of who? Angiras. So we know that the parampara is continuing here. So we are no longer taken aback by Shaunaka because we know that the connection is made from the next word. Upasannaha, having approached, how? Vidhivat, according to the pre-established norms. Who approached? Shaunaka. Shaunaka means Shunakasya apatyam, the son of Shunaka. Just Shaunaka. Father's name. He is known by his father's name. His father was very famous. For what reason? We don't know. Must have been some scholar of some kind. And then Shaunaka, son of Shunaka, approached, and who is also, not that he is only riding on the coattails of the father's fame. He himself is famous. Hawaii, indeed. Why is he famous? He is called Mahashalah, Mahatyah, Yajnashala, Pakashala, Annadhanashala, Yasya Saha Mahashalah. Shala is feminine. It means hall. Shala means a big hall. But then in a compound, which is qualifying the person who happens to be a man, you don't say Mahashala. You say Mahashalah. It is converted into the correct gender of the person which the compound is qualifying or the compound is describing. So Shaunakaha, this Shaunaka is what? Mahashalah. Mahashalah means he is, Adi Shankara says, Mahagrihastha. Mahagrihastha means Mahasamsarin. Already it is difficult to be a Grihastha. Grihastha means the householder. Because everybody says I am householder, but really one is housebound, held by the house, held in hostage by the mortgage payments that one cannot afford, held by all these concerns and problems, held by so many issues. And so therefore what? That is not the idea. Mahagrihastha means a grihastha with a mahan heart. Big-hearted grihastha. Always feeding people. That's why the halls were not for him to roll in. Yeah. Because these days, people have these huge houses. Dream home. And what is this dream home? Everybody, especially in the Indian community, immigrant communities, they want this big, bada dream home. It should have several, bedrooms, several bathrooms, several living rooms. And then, it should have a basement. And then it should have, this is for the grandchildren. Children are not yet born, but the person is already thinking ahead. Grandchildren aayenge, khelenge, they will come, they will all play. The grandchildren will come for, 3 days, once a year. That's all, at best. And then most of the time they are out of the house. They'll say, let's go on vacation. So the house is just there. This is the very interesting trajectory, Immigrant communities that come here, they first find an apartment. They stay in a studio or 1-bedroom studio apartment as student, and then when they become householders, 1-bedroom apartment. And then they buy, their first house, they buy a townhouse or a condo. Then from condo they graduate to 1-family home, single family home. And then comes dream home, bada home. And then they wait, and then they see the yathartha, means the truth of the grandchildren and the, children. The children always stop talking to them in this country, so what to talk of grandchildren? So then they see how infrequent these visitors are. Then they also, their own failing health, they see that it is very difficult to upkeep so many bedrooms, so many bathrooms, so many living rooms. And the basement, no one goes. Basement means a place where no one goes. One pool table will be kept there. Yeah. And, no one goes there. And it is gathering mold and dust and everything. And then what? And then they say, I think we should go to a condo. then they say, we have to sell this house. Nobody wants to buy because your dream house, why will they want to buy? They will have their own dream. Well, your dream house represents a nightmare for them, and so they don't want to buy your dream house. So with great difficulty you will sell for a loss. The people will sell. And then they will get into one condo. And then they will say, this is also too much to manage. Then they will get into an apartment. And then they will get into one small studio. So the whole process is reversed. So my question is, if you have to end up in studio, from studio to studio, why go through this whole thing? It's like doing Dravida Pranayama. Straightforward Pranayama like this, Dravida Pranayama, you have to bring the, you have to bring the hand like this. See, mind doesn't even go. You have to be like Lord Rama, Ajanu Bahu. You have to have hands that touch the knees, not while sitting, while standing. And Lord Rama is called Ajanu Bahu because his hand touched the knees while standing. So then only you can do Dravida Pranayama. Why this roundabout? So, but here Mahashala doesn't mean that he wanted a house, dream house with basement, and Mrs. Chaunaka said we should add two more extra rooms. No. Mahashala means Mr. and Mrs. Chaunaka were of a giving nature. And they were doing yajnas all the time. They were religious. Religious means they were dharmic, coded as dharmic. Only now in Kali Yuga it is possible to be religious without being dharmic. But not in that age, So Pura, we are taught at ancient times, Upanishad wants us to think. And so in those days, dharmic means to be religious, to have a religious life in the Hindu tradition means to follow dharma. There is no other religion other than dharma. That's why it's called Hindu dharma. It is following dharma. And that means when you have yajna, you have to give lots of food away. You cannot have yajna without a party afterwards. And you cannot say, you please bring a potluck. You bring chana, you bring this, you bring sambar, you bring rasam. You cannot designate the people and have potluck after yajna. Horrible, yeah. Any other day you can have potluck, but after yajna, you have to cook, you have to offer that, and then you have to offer that to the people you yourself serve. In fact, when the king used to have yajna, the king used to call all the people, every subject, especially the poor subjects, make them sit down. Remove his chappals. The king who will never remove the chappal. The king and the queen will remove their footwear and then go and serve these, these homeless people, the people who don't have money, the people who don't have food, they will serve humbly. That is the Hindu tradition. In giving, you say that you please, give your blessings to me by receiving whatever little I have to give. You don't say, oh, I have given so much. What's your problem? You didn't say thank you? In fact, there is no word for thank you. So this is Mahashalaha. Mahashalaha means someone who is large-hearted, who takes care of the whole community, perhaps the whole town, who takes care of everyone, without needing to always, feel thanked and feel like, oh, I have done so much. In fact, that's why the Taittiriya Upanishad says, Hriya Deyam, Bhiya Deyam, Samvida Deyam. It tells us how to give. Hriya Deyam, give with a feeling of shame. Have some shame when giving. Why should I be shy when I give? Say, shy means what? Give with modesty. Say, I wish I could give more, but this is all I can afford right now. I really wish I could give more. Give with modesty. Bhiya deyam, give with a sense of fear. Oh my God, are they going to accept my giving or not? Don't take it for granted that, oh, these people are all beggars and they need me. Nobody needs like that. When somebody accepts what you have given, they are doing you a favor. That is the feeling with which we have to give. And such a person who gives with that feeling is called Mahashalaha. So he had many halls, the owner of many halls. One hall for cooking, one hall for feeding all the people, one hall for yajna, one hall for prayer, bhajans, satsang, like that. The many-halled Shaunaka one day thought, or gradually thought, what is the use of all these halls? All these halls should be converted to the hall of knowledge here. So the haloed knowledge has to come to me. So all these halls and the act of hauling these sticks, fire sticks and pots of water and all the things needed to cook and everything gave him the emotional maturity. The same thing the brahmachari has with the cow shed. Same thing. You can get that same thing, inside the ashram or outside the ashram. That same maturity you have got. That same maturity comes out of leading a dharmic life and doing seva. Whether you do it inside the Gurukula or outside, it does not matter. You have gained that maturity, and Mahashala here is a mark of maturity. He has gained that maturity and he has started to ask himself deep questions about the knowledge. Such an emotional maturity is bound to drive you to ask. Otherwise, one is busy doing things, one doesn't even have the time to think about anything. But then, even while carrying a log of wood or some bucket of water or feeding somebody there in the hall by himself, he then says, okay, what is this purpose of this maturity? What am I gaining as a result of this other than just punya? What is this life about? And I still have this sense of incompleteness. Yesterday only the new hall was inaugurated. But after all these halls, there is a hollowness here. What should I do with this hollowness? There is no connection between the halls and the hollowness. And so somehow this hollowness has to be addressed, for which I don't know, and for which I have to seek somebody who knows. And maybe Angiras had, received something from him, a gift or something earlier, or maybe Angiras was famous as a teacher. And nonetheless, Angirasam upasannaha papracha, asked, from prich to ask, asked. So the student here has a question. What does it mean? This knowledge thrives on questions and answers, unasked or asked. We can't have a parampara without questions. It is a place where questions are welcome. Angiras did not say shut up and just listen. Yeah. And he did not say just keep quiet, just listen to me. No. Angiras welcomes him and says, what can I do for you perhaps? Again, we have to extrapolate all this and insert between the lines. And one more thing, how did he approach? Vidhivat, as according to the pre-established norms. And what are the norms in approaching a teacher? You don't go empty-handed. Riktapanir napashyet rajanam daivatam gurum. There is a rule. 3 people should not be seen empty-handed. Raja, a king or a ruler. Even if you didn't vote for Obama, if you go to see Obama, you have to carry something. This is how all the British people, got rich. That's why Kohinoor and all the other diamonds are in their crowns. Yeah. Because they would come and, and these Indians saying, the Hindus saying, Rajanam, oh, Raja has come. They would take all precious gifts and hand it over to them. And what was not handed over, they stole. So, the two together. That's why all the thrones and all the crowns, everything that was belonging to the Indian kings are in the museums elsewhere, all over the world. Figurines, everything. And so this is how it is there. So, Rajanam Riktapanihi, empty-handed, never see. Daivatam, when you go to a place of a shrine, don't see empty-handed Bhagavan. Bhagavan gives you everything, but you at least carry something. And then finally, Guru, don't see empty-handed. To which we can also say, when you're meeting a small child for the first time, under 1 year, you always give something, because child is seen as a avatara of Bhagavan. And so like this, this is a way. So that is one way of approaching the teacher. What's the other way of approaching? What are the other rules of approaching the teacher?
Shraddha, respect.
Yeah, how is that manifest?
Yuga.
Yeah, there is a tad vidhi pranipatena. Pranipata means that sashtanga namaskara. You bend. And the bending, is a manifestation of humility. Is a manifestation that I don't know. And I'm willing to bend. I'm willing to bend my own notions. That's what it is. My wrong notions, I'm flexible to change them. I have something to learn. You have something to offer that I don't have. I'm willing to bend, because otherwise I'll break. I'll be broken by samsara. So I'm willing to bend, and that bending is called pranipata. And then what is the other vidhi? What other norms are there in approaching the teacher?
Don't stand above.
Yeah, you don't stand above. And then?
You serve.
Very good. Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. You serve, or you show your willingness to serve in a way that convinces the teacher. Yeah. That is the thing. And there are ways of offering seva. Offering seva doesn't mean if you need a ride, call me. That is not the. That is what you say to your friend. Yeah, if you need a ride, please call me. If you need anything, call me. And nothing wrong in saying that. That is the prevalent customs of this country in the West. But that's not how one approaches the teacher. Because who needs here? You are the teacher, you have to think. And then you have to frame that eagerness or that willingness to do seva has to be framed differently. That's what it is. Yeah. And so that is called vidhivat. Now an interesting question comes. Now we have Brahmaji. He didn't have to approach anybody for this knowledge. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
It's Bhagavan.
He is Bhagavan. So he didn't have to approach anyone for this knowledge, did he?
No.
And so then what about the other one who got from Brahmaji, Atharva? Did Atharva approach Vidhivat or not?
He did.
How do we know? It only says Vidhivat here.
He's a student.
Huh? But it doesn't say anything about the other people's approaches. Atharva approached Brahma.
This one we carry out.
And then what? Who was Atharva's students? Angir. Angir did not approach Vidhivat. The word Vidhivat does not come there at all. Angir did not approach Vidhivat. And then what? Let that be just start this here. Angir did not approach Vidhivat. And then who was Angir's student? Satya.
Oh, Satya.
Satyavaha did not approach Vidhivat. Suddenly the word Vidhivat is dropped here. Only Shaunaka had the correct respect. Yes? No. Because I told you Upanishad is a lady of few words. Vidhivat will only have one occurrence. You have to extrapolate, you have to carry it all. Because how would Shaunaka have known the Vidhi if the others had not approached Vidhi with the correct ways? We have to see that. And then what? And what was his question? Let us see. Kasminnu Bhagavaha.
Kasminnu Bhagavaha.
Yeah. Vijñāte.
Vijñāte.
Sarvamidam vijñātam bhavati.
Sarvamidam vijñātam bhavati.
Iti. Iti is quotation marks. Iti means thus. What is thus? That which comes before the thus is the question. And what was his question? Kasmin. No. No is for emphasis. Kasmin. In what? Seventh case. Bhagavaha. O Bhagavan. He is calling the Guru Bhagavan because he has the correct attitude towards the teacher. And then Kasmin Vijñāte. Knowing the source of which. Knowing which. Kasmin Vijñāte. Sarvamidam Vijñātam Bhavati. Knowing which does everything as it were. We have to add Vijñātam iva bhavati. Everything becomes as good as known. This is a loaded question, correct? How much must he know to have this question? First he must know that there is only one thing and that is true. And then second he must know that only that one thing is to be known. Third, he must know that there is a connection between that one thing and these as though many things, and that knowing that source of that one thing, these as though many things are also known. So what is left for him to teach? for the teacher to teach? Nothing. That shows what kind of an adhikari he was. And the question also is a very interesting question that has an abiding presence in all the Upanishads. You know, Kene shitam preshitam patati manaha. In the Kena Upanishad, same question. Similar question. Here 7th case, there 3rd case. 7th case here means knowing what is the source in which everything is. And there, by whom is this world ordered? Kena ishitam. Ordained by who? The ish here is again Isha, Ishvara. Ordained by who? Managed by who? The mind falls into various thoughts and thought patterns. Because you are not in charge of the thought, correct? What is your next thought? Huh? What's your next thought? What? Come on. What's your next thought?
What is the next thought?
Exactly. So we don't know what is the next thought. And that means that we are not even in charge of the next thought. And here we have this semblance of control. Funny, you know. And so here, who is in charge of dropping the thoughts in my mind, the student asks. Ordained by whom do the thoughts drop in my mind? And then again in the Chandogya Upanishad, the quote was there earlier. Yena ashrutam shrutam bhavati, yena amatam matam avijñātam vijñātam. That by which the unheard becomes heard, which is the source of hearing, which is the source of knowing, knowing which everything as though becomes known. Same question. So Chandogya Upanishad, same question. Then Mundaka Upanishad, same question. The Taittiriya, this one, the other one, Taittiriya Upanishad, same kind of answer. Brahmavida apnoti param. And then sarvan kaman samashnute, knowing one thing, gaining this Brahman, everything is gained. That is the vision. And that vision he already knows. How does he know? Big question. How does he know? He doesn't know, that's why he is approaching the teacher, but even to know this much, how does he know? So there are two possible explanations. He might have hung out in the jewelry shops. Why? Because he saw one gold and many ornaments. And Adi Shankara gives this example, Loka Samanyat, meaning seeing one wood, many carvings, one gold, many ornaments. So by that he would have inferred that, perhaps the whole Jagat is run by that one thing, which is as though manifest as many. So he kind of extended his inference to go on that same line of thinking, partly. And then he says, partly, he saw elders in his own, Vriddha Vyavahara. Means he saw the elders all going for this knowledge. And the Veda saying, whatever, even though he doesn't know the meaning of Brahmavid apnoti param, he has chanted that. While doing Abhisheka, he has chanted. And he has chanted all these Upanishads without really understanding their meaning. So he knows there is something there that he has to find out, he has to understand, he has to know. And so therefore he asks the question, Kasmin vijñāte, knowing that, knowing which thing alone is everything as good as known. Please teach me that. And we'll read the Bhashya and then next time we'll talk about it in detail. Shaunakah Shunakasya apatyam Mahashalah Mahagrihastha Angirasam Bharadvaja Shishyam Acharyam Vidhivat यथा
यथा
शास्त्रम्
शास्त्रम्
इत्येतत्
एतत्
उपसन्नः
उपसन्नः
उपगतः सन्
उपगतः सन्
पपृच्छ
पप्रच्छ
पृष्टवान्
पृष्टवान्
शौनक
शौनक
अंगिरसोः
अंगिरसोः
सम्बन्धात्
सम्बन्धात्.
that we'll do that later. That's a longer discussion. We'll do these two sentences. Shaunakah. These I've already explained, so that bhashya will become easy. So Shaunakah means Shunakasya apatyam. He is just giving the grammatical derivation. Yeah. Tasya apatyam, there is a Paninian sutra. Tasya apatyam in the 4192 or something like that, in that region. There is one sutra. Tasya apatyam means, apatya means offspring. And then, then the shu becomes shau because there is adi vriddhi. An perhaps is the pratyaya. An. So by achonyati, there is adi vriddhi. And so shu becomes what? Shau. Shaunakaha. And so like this, so Shunaka becomes Shaunaka. And so therefore, Shaunaka means son of Shunaka. Shunakasya apatyam. And then what? Mahashalaha is described as Mahagrihastha. I have already explained. Not a Grihastha who is glubbing in samsara, but a Grihastha who is large-hearted and does not miss an opportunity to give. Why? Because he knows, Shaunaka knows that in giving lies growth. So he does not miss an opportunity to give. He does not, and also he is a compassionate person, and he does not miss an opportunity to wipe a tear from some eye and to help out in whatever way he can. He extends himself and reaches out through all these, Ishtakarma and the Purtakarma. Purtakarma, Ishtakarma means all these yajnas, etc. Purtakarma, Annadanam, And so, therefore, this is called Mahagrahastha. And Angirasam, who is this Angirasa? Adi Shankara reminds us in the way only he can. He says, Bharadvaja Shishyam, the Shishya of Bharadvaja. Oh, I am going to a Shishya for knowledge? No, Acharyam. Now who has become Acharya, then Shishya. In the last verse, now Acharya. So don't worry, he is not going to some roadside Shishya for knowledge. That Shishya who became Acharya, alone he is going. A reputed Acharya now, he is going for knowledge. And then, Vidhivat means Yatha Shastram Anatikramya. Avyayi bhava. And so, Shastram Anatikramya, without crossing what the Shastra says, means according to the stipulations of the Shastra. Shastram Anatikramya, what happens? Upasannaha means upagataha. Same thing, he just uses a different verb. Upagataha, approached. Approached according to the stipulations of the Shastra. And having approached upagataha san, what did he say? Prishtavan. Asked. What did he ask? He asked all the things that we have already seen, What did he ask? Prishtavan, we know that. And then further, Shaunaka Angirasoho.
Shaunaka Angirasoho
Sambandhad Va something Vak Vidhivat Visheshanat Sambandhad Sambandhad Arvak. Yes, Arvak. Yes. So because it's not Vak, it's Arvak. Shaunaka Angirasoho Sambandhat Arvak विधिवत्
विधिवत्
विशेषणात्
विशेषणात्
उपसन्नविधेः
उपसन्नविधेः
पूर्वेषां
पूर्वेषां
नियमः
नियमः
इति गम्यते.
इति गम्यते.
Yeah, so he says arvak means before. Arvak, why is that put? Because before the sambandha, the relationship of Angiras and Shaunaka, or Shaunaka approaching Angiras, before this incident happened, this Vidhivat was already there, Purvesham. This Vidhi of approaching the Acharya with Shraddha, with Bhakti, with respect, with prostrating before the Acharya, carrying a gift or a token of the readiness, to show the readiness to do seva and availability, and all this was already there, it says. Arvak, it was there. And how do we know it was that? This upasanna vidhehe purvesham niyamaha, this vidhi niyama, this rule was already there among the earlier acharyas who were shishyas, towards their acharyas. This has to iti gamyate, it has to be taken, understood like this. And why should it be understood like this? He gives two reasons. Maryada karanartham madhyadipika nyayartham va visheshanam. Yeah. So he says there are two reasons. Maryada karanartham means to show that there is this parampara of respecting the teachers, respecting the elders has such a mainstay in the tradition that there is no way that even though the word vidhivat is used here alone, that the previous acharyas would not have respected their acharyas. That is not the case. So that is the first reason. Second reason he gives is a very interesting logic called Dehali Deepa Nyaya. Dehali means the compound between two houses, the separating compound. There are 40 kinds of nyayas like this, they are fun. So Dehali Deepa Nyaya is one of them. So there is a compound, this side one house, that side one house. And you keep a lamp on the compound, which yard will it light? Both. So the Vidhivat here is a light that is lighting that this Vidhi was followed previously. Purvesham Acharyanam Vidhihi. So it was followed by all those acharyas that came before, and then it is the same Vidhi that is to be followed by Shaunaka and all of us. Asmadadi Paryantam, Adi Shankara is going to say, and even up till us. It includes us who are studying, and that Vidhi extends to us also. So you see that Vidhi is long range in scope. The Vidhi of approaching, the correct manner of approaching the teacher. When it is mentioned only with regard to Shaunaka, even though it's mentioned here, it should be taken to have already followed before. And it should be taken to be something that is to be followed later. Just like it is throwing the light on the past and is throwing the light on the compound of the present. Dehali Deepa Nyayavat. Madhya Deepika Nyaya, same thing it is. Madhya Deepika Nyaya, Dehali Deepa Nyaya, Itiva Visheshanam. Yeah, so more we will see next time. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Yeah, asking the questions with the right attitude. Yeah, that's a very good one. Pariprashnam, that's what it's called. Yes. Very nice. Yes. So, questions. Any questions are there? Yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Back to yesterday.
Back to yesterday. Okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So this guy, this Shankara guy,
Uh-huh.
So he gives an explanation. He gives a model of creation.
He gives an explanation of what?
Creation. I'm back to the clamor of the Jivas.
Aha.
Because in that,
Yeah.
what he's doing is he's, granted it's words, but what he's doing is he's giving what is a very convincing model.
Okay.
Because what he's saying is something which I think is just overwhelming, and that in the process of creation, before that, so what he's saying is before that, there was the clamor, so there was the potential, the Hiranyagarbha of the clamor of the jivas, which includes samsara and,
Jagat.
then nitya, and
Yeah.
all of these things already there within.
Yes.
And that's pretty revolutionary to think,
Mm-hmm.
don't you think?
Yes, but he is not saying that. He is just reiterating what is said by the Vedas, by the Upanishads.
Nevertheless,
Yes, it is revolutionary. Yes.
that's earth-shaking
Yes.
for me.
Yes, absolutely.
And granted, it's, and this whole thing of the Upanishads are just words. Well, I wish I'd known that a few years ago. The whole thing is,
It's big. Yeah, it's very big.
and it's to be ignored as well as accepted.
Not ignored. It has to be accepted, processed, and transcended through the understanding that you are that out of which all the clamor comes, and you are that silence which the clamor resolves into. Yeah.
And there is no samsara.
There is no samsara because all there is you. There is no jagat.
And yet within me is samsara.
No.
Well,
there is no
within
samsara
this-
within you.
Within this
But it is
statement
mithya. It's mithya. Like you're counting the ornaments, where we have to learn to count the gold. Gold is one. There are many ornaments. So if the ornament thinks I am in samsara, then it has to be shown that its nature is gold. So yeah. So then, when the ornament knows I'm not really an ornament, I'm really every little bit of me, even if I'm a tiny nose stud, I'm still gold. And it loses that smallness in its knowledge of that oneness with the gold. It loses the smallness and it knows it is gold, so it can have fun being small. It doesn't compete with other ornaments like a big long chain or a huge biscuit, gold biscuit. It doesn't compete. It is fine how it is. And so that is what it is. So the negation doesn't happen, really speaking. The transcendence is cognitive. Yeah, all the ornaments don't have to, melt into gold. It is not the melting pot. They can remain separate, but that difference doesn't matter. You have transcended the difference. That's what is the beauty of it, this knowledge. It is huge. Yeah. So there is no samsara, no jagat even, ultimately. And that's what one is led to be seeing. First you have to take it as real. Otherwise, how are you going to even live? No point in getting out of bed even.
And yet there is this manifest and potential, the unmanifest
Yeah.
with potential to manifest.
Yeah. But that's the different. That we cannot mix up the levels of the models. That's a different order of reality. That is to account for the emergence of what is called the phenomenal or the empirical reality. But then the empirical reality doesn't bother you. So you don't try to look for explanations or the source. You stop engaging with it, really, because it's left to be itself. You are in your own glory, and everything is an addition to your glory. So when you do engage in the empirical way with the empirical world, you are in your own glory. You feel glorious, and so there is no problem. And so that's why we have to gain this knowledge. Yes, I got your email. I'm going to reply to you. Yes, I've not had the time. Yeah, we've been a little busy. I'm going to reply today itself. Yeah. I will reply to you. Yeah, I was very touched by your email. I'm going to reply. I didn't want to write something in a hurry. I will reply. So this is what it is. The knowledge is huge because even though we don't try to remove what is called Ishvara Srishti. Srishti means the creation. You are not trying to remove the creation. You are just changing your drishti. The Srishti is in your drishti. You change your drishti, there is no Srishti, that is problematic. Yes. So you go from Srishti to drishti. That is what it is.
Krishti.
Srishti. Not Krishti. Srishti.
Srishti to Drishti.
Srishti, Jagat, Drishti, attitude, your own vision. Yeah. So you don't tamper with the Jagat. You change your vision to override. You press the override button. Yeah, that's what it is.
And the teaching.
That is the teaching.
And the teaching is metaphor after metaphor after metaphor after metaphor, words after words after words after words, to get beyond that.
Yes. To dismantle the notional reality that, okay, all this is Satyam, there are competing Satyams in the head, and the competition is taken out by showing what is that one Satyam, by delineating the other things as not the ultimate. So the non-ultimate, when you remove, what remains is ultimately you, the ultimate. And the removal is cognitive. Okay?